And even without Kurt, we're running along here. But we definitely want to talk about how do I participate in conventions? And let's talk about Chattacon and how it went. So, Joe, tell Devo how Chattacon went, man, for you.
I had no preconceptions about Chattacon because I hadn't really talked to many people about it, so I had no idea what it was gonna be like. I will say it was a lot smaller than I was expecting. I knew it would be way smaller than Dragon Con, but even then it was smaller than I was expecting. I How many people would you say were there? A couple hundred, maybe?
Man,
Over the weekend?
that's hard. It really is hard for me to judge sometimes.
Yeah.
When they're not all in one room, even then, so like the Gallery of Six at Dragon Con will hold like 100 people within reason.
Yeah.
I mean, it'll hold more than that, but we have limits, right? It doesn't feel like 100 people in that room, so I say at most 200. But I really kind of feel like it was less.
Yeah. So it was a lot smaller. They had 3 main panel rooms and then kind of 2 overflow rooms that were more like workshop rooms slash party rooms. And I say party loosely. They were mini parties. The average age was substantially higher than Dragon Con, in my opinion.
We were definitely on the younger end of the spectrum.
Yeah. But that said, the panels that I went to, they were really good.
Really good.
A lot of good audience participation. The panelists were very knowledgeable. And it was very, very good.
Good.
A lot of people, it seems, came to hang out on the bottom floor.
That would be the vendor where the authors were and stuff, right? Yeah.
So they had 4 rooms down there. There was the vendor hall, and then there were the authors leading up to that, but they were kind of just in the hallway.
Which I get. So it's a very author centric con. So that was really cool that as you walk into
or at least it was this year.
Sure. I mean, we weren't there before, but my understanding is an author. But yeah, they did authors right. It's like that's the first thing you see, and you can easily talk to and access them. And you either go upstairs to the panels or you go through them to the vendor hall. So I thought they did that well.
Yeah, and they do have me wanting to write a book. Not gonna lie, but yeah. So they had the vendor hall down there. They had a room for board games and a room for tabletop RPGs. And then they also had what they called the con suite, which they had free food and adult beverages down there. And people that's
the first time I've been to a place just handing out beer to adults. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. And so those rooms were packed.
Tell everybody what I said about that room.
I don't remember now.
Oh my God, I was so funny, and you don't even remember?
I'm sure it was hilarious.
This is the best attended panel in the whole con.
Yeah. I do remember that.
There was at least 30 people in that room filling the room at tables.
Well, and like their guests of honor were just mingling with everybody. Like it wasn't. Whereas at Dragon Con, it's kind of taboo to approach them outside of their designated stuff. Yes. Orders of magnitude larger. But it was low key. It was nice. It was personable, and it was a good experience.
So talk about the panel Wise and Nerdy. How was that for you?
Yeah, so Wise and Nerdy was a lot of fun. Tales by Bob joined us, and his energy matched us very well. It went quite swimmingly. I hope the recording turned out well.
It does seem like it did. I want to pull. I haven't listened to the Zoom one. That's the one I really want to take because I was wired in. But the phone ones I spot checked. Both phones recorded well, so we could use that if we needed to.
Awesome. Yeah. And we had it was a relatively small crowd, but they participated a ton. It was a lot of good back and forth with the audience, and I think our panel went really well. Everyone in the audience afterwards came up and got stickers from us and talked to us, and it was a lot of fun. And immediately one of the people in charge of programming came up to us afterward and was like, "Are you coming back next year?" We're like, "Yeah, I think we will." So
we were both. So My take on it is that I was very wary, right? Because I had the Friday night panel right after opening ceremonies to interview one of the guest
Yep.
of honors, and that interview went really well. It's going to be on Finding the Stories. We recorded it. We talked ahead of time, so she knew it was a show and not necessarily a standard Q&A. She's Robin. Sorry, I messed up. Mary Robinette Cowell, and author of the Lady Astronaut series and a number of other books. And just a great conversation. But the way the opening ceremonies went, it ended a little early, which let people have a reason to go to the bar or go find out, what else is going on. So we had a smaller room. Still went really well. But it's like, man, this was a really responsive room. It was a really good conversation. But I'm worried, Joe, that this con is too small for even our show. Now, we have no egos. We have enough ego to get on the stage and dance and jive and play with each other and have fun, but we don't have the ego to go, well, this room better be full. But I was worried. I can't speak for you, but I was a little concerned of the energy, right? Who would show up? And sure enough, as it's time to get started, there's two people in the audience, two. But Joe, me and Joe are going to do the show, right? And Bob was there. We're going to have fun. And more people came in. I think we had maybe 10, 12 people at the end. And whoever came in stayed. And that was fun. And they were stepping up. They were rolling the dice. They were telling their bad dad jokes. They were getting
that one lady, it was her first panel ever.
Yeah.
That she had ever attended.
It was definitely her first Chattacon.
Her first con. Yeah, she said it was the first panel that she had ever attended too.
Yeah, so we really did well with Bad Bunny over there. She had some kind of bunny suit on. I don't know. But I had to, of course, I do my stick. I attack the audience, call them out, argue with them. And they're like, oh, I'm here for that. Let's go. We invented a new segment by nature, Council of Dads, where we'd love to do it here on the show, where you write in and tell us a story of your parenthood. And because the thing is, we're dads. We call it Fatherhood Meets Fandom because that's where we're speaking from. But parenting and fandom are ubiquitous, right? We're going to have some lady daddies on, and they're really called mommies. But we're going to call them lady daddies because I'm weird like that. But it is very much you could share your story, and they stood up because it was about Bob. Tell me a story. He's talking about Elf on the Shelf, and we're going to drop that podcast episode for free. For a moment, I thought maybe we should make this Patreon. Like, nah, this is too good. So we're putting it out for the world. But Bob tells this great Elf on the Shelf story, which spawned the audience to stay. Yeah, kind of. Yeah, random kid, Council of Dads, aka am I the butt face for parents? Yes, yes, 100%. Because then somebody stood up and talked about the song they sang to their kid, and they told the story. They finally told us what the song was, and we're like, Council of Dads approved. This I have the book. It's in my. It used to be on my shelf in the old studio, but I have the Die Hard like golden books kids version book of Die Hard, and this guy read it to his daughter, and her daughter took it to school, and he got the parent call. Council of Dad approved. That's good parenting right there. So it even birthed a whole new segment that might replace the How Do I or be interchanged with the How Do I. So yeah, tell us your stories. But beyond, I mean, it went so well. I mean, playing to 5, 10, 12 people, not a lot of people, but the energy was great. They were laughing at the jokes. Joe was really stepping up. There was definitely that argument, Bluey, about Lazy Town. You're wrong, but it was everything other than wanting it to be 1,000 member audience. It was everything I've ever wanted from one of our live shows doing something like this, right? Where they just got it. They laughed at the jokes. They added their own jokes. They brought a whole lot of bad dad jokes to the table, and that was very painful. And it just elevated our game, and it was so much fun. But to go to the rest of the con, I agree with Joe. I was just tagging along. Joe's like, hey, well, someone was like, let's just sit here and eat our lunch. Right? Or hey, let's go to this panel because Bob's on it. We don't know anybody else. Because 90% of the panels were author related. How to write this story, how to do that story, how horror in the modern world, blah, blah, blah. And Joe took me to a panel that was about research beyond Google. And they had 7, 8 panelists on this thing. And let me tell you, Joe's not wrong. I'm backing it up with being kind of the panel expert, being that I've run Dragon Con. I've seen hundreds of panels being done. Not a single bad panel or panelist. every last person that they put at that table was engaging, was working with each other on the table, but not in an exclusive way, but in an inclusive that made you feel like you're part of that conversation. And I think I said something at every panel, Joe, not because they needed, not because I'm like, hey, I want to throw out this thing to get you started. It was like, hey, you just felt like you're part of that conversation. And that was really, really, really good. And Random Kid is about to get banned with that very bad pun. Very bad pun. You can read it if you want, so I'm not reading it.
He said, it's apparent that Charles loves bad dad jokes.
Well, that is one way to ruin a good vacation. So I guess it's time to turn this car around and go home, everybody. That's the show. Thank you for being on tonight.